His name was George, 67 years old, retired fit, walked every day, never smoked. His blood pressure was fine, his cholesterol was under control, and everyone, including his doctor, thought he was in great shape. Until one morning, 20 minutes after waking up, George collapsed. No chest pain, no warning, just slurred speech, a weak arm, and confusion. By the time the ambulance arrived, he was in the middle of a stroke. And here's the part that haunts me. George didn't ignore his health. He didn't make some massive mistake. He did what 80% of people over 60 do every morning, without even thinking about it. And that tiny automatic habit may have tripled his risk of stroke. What if I told you the biggest danger to your brain wasn't your age, but the way you wake up? That's what we're talking about today on the Shigeaki podcast, where age meets wisdom and where one tiny shift could save your life. And to help me unpack this, I'm joined by a man who has not only studied the human brain for more than 7 decades, but lived with his own for over a century. Dr. Shigeaki Hinohara is a neurologist, author, teacher, and national treasure of Japan. He is now over 100 years old and still walking, still teaching, still paying attention to what keeps the human mind sharp after 60, 70, even 100. He has personally treated thousands of patients who suffered strokes and thousands more who avoided them simply by changing the way they greeted the day.
Thank you, Dr. Hyman. And to our listeners, I want to say something very simple. The first 5 minutes after you wake up may be the most important 5 minutes of your entire day. In those minutes, your brain is not yet ready. Your blood is thick. Your heart is cautious. Your nerves are still deciding whether to rise or stay still. And if you rush that moment, if you move too quickly, skip hydration, and push yourself into motion, you are testing your brain in its most fragile state.
So today's episode is about exactly that. We'll reveal the common morning mistake that silently increases stroke risk in seniors. We'll explain why your brain is most vulnerable right after waking. And we'll share the Shigeaki morning protocol, a gentle science-backed routine that anyone can follow starting tomorrow to protect their brain. If you're over 60 or love someone who is, don't miss this one.
Because every morning is a door. You can rush through it, or you can step through it with care and keep walking for years to come.
Let me ask you a question. Have you ever thought, well, I'm getting older. This is just what happens. Your balance gets worse, your energy dips, your mornings feel harder. But here's the truth. Age is not the cause of decline. Habit is. And when it comes to strokes, that distinction is everything. Yes, it's true, stroke risk increases after 60, but not because of the number on your birthday cake. It's because your vascular system changes, your hydration drops. Overnight, your nervous system becomes more sensitive, and if your habits don't adjust to match that, you're placing silent stress on your brain day after day.
That is so important to understand. In Japan, we have elders who live into their 90s and 100s without stroke, without dementia. Why? Because we don't see aging as an excuse. We see it as a signal, now you must adapt. The problem is not the number, it is the lack of preparation, especially in the morning.
And so many people, especially in the West, wake up and rush. They sit up fast. They reach for cold water or worse, coffee. They shower too hot or too cold. They skip breakfast. They check the news before they've even centered their nervous system. All of this puts tremendous pressure on the brainstem, the area responsible for regulating blood pressure balance and survival reflexes.
When I see patients who have suffered minor strokes in the early morning, I often ask, how did you begin your day? And the answers are almost always the same. I jumped out of bed. I felt dizzy, but kept moving. I had coffee, but no water. These are not coincidences, they are patterns.
Exactly. Your brain doesn't like sudden shifts, especially after 60. Overnight, we lose water through breathing and sweat. Blood gets thicker, cortisol starts to rise, and your blood vessels are narrower than they were in your 30s or 40s. So when you shock your body into motion without giving it a moment to stabilize, you create the perfect storm.
This is why in Japan our elders are taught to greet the morning slowly. The body is not a machine, it is a landscape. And every day you must walk through that landscape gently, especially when the sun is just rising.
So if you've been telling yourself, "I'm just getting older," I want to challenge that today. Because stroke is not your fate. It's often your routine. And changing that routine might just save your brain. So what exactly is this mistake, the one that my patient George and millions of others over 60 make every single morning? It's this: they sit up and stand up too fast, without water, without breath, without pause, and that sudden motion in a body that's dehydrated, tight, and still rebooting from sleep can cause a sudden drop in blood pressure, a loss of balance, and in some cases, an acute stroke.
We call this orthostatic stress. When the body moves from lying down to standing up too quickly, blood rushes downward. The brain is left briefly under-oxygenated. And for someone with hardened arteries or fragile vessels, even a few seconds of low perfusion can trigger a cascade.
I've seen it happen again and again. Someone wakes up, swings their legs off the bed, stands up fast, feels dizzy, but ignores it. Next thing they know, their speech is slurred, or they fall, or they're in the ER getting scanned for a clot.
And the irony is it feels so normal. People think I just stood up, I didn't fall down the stairs. But for the aging brain, it's not about trauma, it's about pressure. Sudden pressure shifts damage delicate systems.
And it's not just about standing. People make it worse by doing this chain of events. 1. Stand up too fast. 2. Skip water. 3. Head straight to coffee. 4. Turn on the news or phone. 5. Move into their day without any transition. Each one of those actions adds stress to the nervous system, spikes cortisol, and restricts blood flow to the brain.
It is like waking a bird with a firecracker. The brain does not respond with strength, it responds with confusion, and sometimes with damage.
So here's what I want every listener to understand. The first 5 minutes of your morning are not routine. They are neurological. Your brain is vulnerable. Your blood is thicker. Your vessels are tight, and your nervous system is still choosing whether to fight or to breathe. That's why standing too fast, especially without hydration, isn't harmless. It's one of the leading silent triggers for early morning strokes in older adults.
And yet when we slow down just a little, we create space for the body to adjust. That space is what prevents collapse. That space is what protects memory mobility and dignity.
And that brings us to what you created, Dr. the Shigeaki Protocol, a simple, beautiful, and powerful morning ritual that helps prevent exactly this kind of event.
Yes, it does not require wealth. It requires wisdom, and I would be honored to share it next. When I was a young neurologist, I saw stroke after stroke come in just after sunrise. And I began asking not only what happened, but how did their day begin? And what I learned over decades is that most strokes do not begin with disease. They begin with how we wake up. So I created a simple routine. I didn't invent it. I only listened to the body. I call it the Shigeaki Morning Protocol. Here it is. 1. Stay in bed for 1 to 2 minutes after waking. Let your eyes open slowly. Take 3 deep, gentle breaths. Feel your heart, not your phone. 2. Roll gently to your side. Don't sit up yet. Rolling allows the blood to redistribute. Stay there 30 seconds. It's like giving gravity time to arrive. 3. Sit up, but do not stand. Let your feet rest on the floor. Place your hands on your lap. Again, 3 slow breaths. Eyes open, balance returning. 4. Drink a glass of warm water, not coffee, not juice. Warm water thins. The blood wakes up the brain and tells the heart, I'm ready now. 5. Open the window or curtain. Natural light helps reset your internal clock. It lowers stroke-triggering hormones like cortisol and lifts mood gently. 6. Then and only then stand. Slowly. Now the brain has enough oxygen, the blood is moving, and your nervous system is awake.
That's extraordinary. And what's so powerful is it's not hard, it's not expensive, it doesn't take 30 minutes. Just a few quiet moments with your own body.
Yes, people ask me, Doctor, is it really that simple? And I say healing does not always shout. Sometimes it whispers, and only the quiet can hear it.
Let me add one more thing for our listeners. If you're on morning medication for blood pressure or blood thinners, don't take it before you've hydrated. Your kidneys need water to protect you. Even one small glass before your pill makes a difference.
And if you feel dizzy in the morning, stop. Sit. Don't push through it. That's your brain asking for a moment. Respect that moment.
So many people are afraid of slowing down. But what you're teaching, doctor, is that slowing down is not weakness, it's wisdom. Now that we've gently woken up hydrated and allowed the nervous system to settle, the next question is, what should we eat? Or maybe more importantly, should we eat? Because right now, a lot of people over 60 are trying intermittent fasting. They skip breakfast. They say it helps with weight or insulin or energy. But the data is very different when it comes to older adults. And when we're talking about stroke risk, skipping breakfast may do more harm than good.
Yes. When we are young, fasting builds discipline. When we are older, it sometimes removes what the brain desperately needs: fuel and fluid. The brain after sleep has been fasting for 8 or 10 hours. The neurons are ready to communicate, but without nourishment, they misfire. And the body begins the day in a state of compensation, not balance.
That's so important. I've seen patients who skip breakfast then crash at 10 a.m. or feel foggy, dizzy, or moody, and they blame age. But really, their brain just didn't get breakfast. Let's talk food. What kind of breakfast do you recommend, doctor?
Simple, warm, light, and never rushed. In Japan, we serve elders a very traditional breakfast: a small bowl of miso soup, fermented, gentle, hydrating, a soft-boiled egg or grilled fish protein without heaviness, a few steamed vegetables or pickled radish for gut health, a bowl of rice porridge or barley slow-release energy, and always green tea or warm barley tea. Never coffee first. This meal does not spike the blood sugar. It does not burden digestion. It tells the body, you are safe. You may begin the day.
I love that. And for our Western listeners, it doesn't have to be complicated. You can start with a boiled egg, a handful of steamed spinach, a slice of avocado, or even just some oats with cinnamon and a few pumpkin seeds. The key is balance some protein, a little healthy fat, and no sugar bomb.
And always warm if possible. Cold foods in the morning can shock the digestive system. The blood moves inward to warm the stomach, and circulation to the brain is reduced. In some elders, this contributes to morning dizziness or fatigue.
Wow, so even the temperature of your breakfast matters. That's a level of care I think we've lost in the West.
Yes, in our care homes, we found that simply switching from cold cereal to warm broth reduced morning blood pressure spikes by 20%.
So let's summarize for our listeners. Don't skip breakfast after 60. Your brain needs fuel. Avoid sugar-cold food or coffee on an empty stomach. Choose warm, simple, calming foods. And eat slowly because eating too fast also spikes stress hormones.
And one more thing, eat sitting down without distraction. No phone, no news, just presence. That is how the nervous system digests.
So here we are. We've talked about blood pressure, breakfast, and the beauty of slowing down. But at the heart of it all is something deeper. Your morning is not a routine. It's a message to your brain, to your heart, to your body. And that message can either say, rush, stress, survive, or it can say, breathe, nourish, begin again.
Every stroke I've ever seen came without an invitation, but many of them came after a rushed morning. We cannot control all things, but we can control the first 5 minutes of our day. We can choose to rise like elders, not just older people, but elders with presence, rhythm, and grace.
To everyone listening, you are not fragile, you are not too late, and you are not alone. Every quiet habit you practice tomorrow morning, one breath, one glass of water, one slow step becomes a kind of protection, a thank you to your brain for still being here.
And if this episode helped you in any way, I ask you, share it. Share it with your spouse, your mother, your neighbor. Let the quiet wisdom spread, because that too is medicine.
And if you haven't yet, please subscribe to the Shigeaki podcast. Leave us a kind review. It helps this message reach more people who need it.
The sun rises every day, but the way we greet it, that's our choice. May yours be gentle, may your brain be steady, and may you wake tomorrow just a little wiser.
We'll see you next time.